Hello, welcome to AstroXtra, Uranus in Aries. I'm Christopher Witecki, your stand-up astrologer who happens to be sitting down for this particular series. And we're going to talk about Uranus in Aries, a big deal. This is something that happens every 86 years. That is the orbit of Uranus around the sun and the orbit of Uranus through the 12 signs. So this is a once-in-a-century kind of thing that happens. And here we are with Uranus in Aries again. Now, let's break down Uranus and let's break down Aries before we get into the interpretation of it. Uranus is the breakdown vibration. It is breakdown breakthrough. Uranus seeks to innovate a situation. And the type of energy that comes to it is kind of a shocking, earthquake, spiritual turbulent energy. Uranus is kind of the planet that pushes you in the pool, you know, and that's how it really gets you moving, unfortunately. It makes you slip, it makes you trip, it makes you fall into a situation. Whenever Uranus shows up to a certain vibration, that vibration has usually become stuck in a rut. That's what Uranus does. Uranus unsticks a vibration or a state of awareness that's stuck in a particular rut. It brings it to the next level. Pluto will break it down and make it completely be reborn. That's death and rebirth. Uranus is, let's just upgrade. In fact, Uranus is kind of like a software upgrade, and it works out the bugs and gets it to the next level. So Uranus is the innovation vibration. Now, Aries is the state of awareness that's responsible for our ego. We have 12 states of consciousness that make up the human condition. One of those states of consciousness is ego. The ego state of awareness is kind of the spiritual force field we put around ourselves. This spiritual force field represents us. It is our personality. It's our automated defense mechanism. So when we defend ourselves or don't defend ourselves, that's an Aries state of awareness, or a rising, your rising sign state of awareness that is executing that. And our egos are very much based on our childhood. This state of consciousness of ego is one that is developed in our lifetime, right? Our other states of consciousness come from our past lives, but our ego is actually a product just of this particular life, which of course is from the reactions of our childhood and the conditions that we were raised under. So as we grow our ego consciousness. Our ego gets programmed based on our parents, based on our childhood, and it becomes an automated sense of personality by the time we are adults. Our Aries energy is also where we draw strength. It is our ego that shuts ourselves off from the world. It's our ego that acts. Our ego is the one that puts things into action, that makes us move forward, that takes our spiritual growth and moves forward with it, charges ahead. And also our ego consciousness is one that shuts off from God consciousness. We can get in our ego and we can separate from the other states of awareness when we're focused only on our ego. So that said, Uranus entering into Aries is an innovation of the human ego on the planet. And boy, we are overdue, right? It's very clear that ego has run amok in this planet Earth, or on this planet Earth. We are living way too much in ego. And so what happens is every 86 years, Uranus comes around and humbles the world. That's basically what happens, in my opinion. It's a humbling. It's a return to what is true and what is strong, and false ego consciousness collapses. Now, the best way to look at Uranus in Aries is to look at the last time Uranus was in Aries, which was 1927. I don't know if you are well equipped with your history lessons, but in 1927, where were we? Well, we were in the roaring 20s. In fact, it was Uranus in Pisces that got us to go drinking and escape, that Neptune-Pisces type of thing. We went partying for a whole decade. And over that partying period, we did detach from God. Our egos got really big. We started trading on the stock market with false credit, right? False credit, false ego. And eventually, in 1929, under Uranus and Aries, the stock market crashed. That false ego, that balloon, popped, and everything fell with it. Now, during the same period of time of ego being humbled, you have also that Aries lesson of strength. We all nearly starved to death. We had to find our strength. We had to find our courage. We had to move on. So it's a rebuilding of the ego after the collapse of the ego. And the rebuilding of the ego was on sensible, practical things. Not false stock market prices, but rather national parks, a job, infrastructure. Look how we built the interior of this country with the New Deal under Roosevelt, right? Who got us through. That's another aspect of Uranus in Aries. is that we see new ego archetypes be born. It was during Uranus and Aries that Hitler came into power. He came back to Germany, said, we can be stronger, we can make this a united nation, and he built Germany, or rebuilt Germany, during Uranus and Aries. Also in Uranus and Aries, Stalin became incredibly powerful. This is when he tightened his grip. He created communal farming in the Soviet Union, which killed millions of serfs, by the way, who were starving to death under the same period in the World Depression, and the transformation of all of the farmland of the Soviet Union into basically Soviet farmland or communist farmland. And of course, we saw the rise of Roosevelt, right? Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Look at these big egos that are being born. Basically, World War II was the result of Uranus and Aries building all these big egos into power. FDR, of course, Stalin. Churchill came into incredible power during the same period. Like I already said, Joseph Stalin did as well. Mussolini did as well. All these big egos being born. And of course, even in business and other aspects of the United States, big egos being born and carrying far too, or being carried farther. In fact, this was the time when corporations were basically named after the ego of the man who created them. The Rockefellers got even larger during this period, right? Henry Ford, you name it. People trying to be egotistical and cross the Atlantic Ocean with an airplane for the first time. Ego, ego, ego. Build, build, build. Strength, strength, strength. So here we are again in 2011. And we are at a point where Uranus is entering into Aries. That means that false ego and false strengths will collapse during this time. I am not surprised that we are up against potential revolution in many areas of the world during Uranus and Aries. I think we have seen simply a precursor to it with Uranus and Pisces here in the first half of 2011, and I think it's going to up the stakes. So I think Bahrain, Egypt, Libya, and most importantly Iran, who has an Aries constitution, by the way, will probably go through some incredible breakdown and breakthrough during this period. Now, the stock market crashed in 1929 when Uranus went to 4 degrees, which is a volatile degree for Uranus if you know your degrees in astrology. By the way, when will Uranus go to 4 degrees in this next cycle? It will be in March 2012. So in March 2012, we will be in the same energy as we were during the stock market crash. And this is yet one more clue of the importance of the transformation in Uranus and Aries and what's about to happen. So although they say December 21st, I am going to put it out there and say we'll probably see some major collapse of false egos or false strength in March and April of 2012. And it may be corporations and other things besides just governments. Quite often it is financial markets that get affected as well. So as you can tell, we're in a very powerful and transformative time. It is time to transform the human ego. And what must be incorporated into the human ego is our spiritual awareness. We need to create a hybrid of Uranus-Pisces lessons and Uranus-Aries lessons, a hybrid of a spiritual ego. It's now time to start becoming cocky about being a light worker and a spiritual worker. And what I predict will happen in the next 7 years is those built on ego for only ego's sake will collapse. And those egos that are built on spiritual win-win principles will soar and succeed. And the journey and the drama starts now. All right, that's all I have for the introduction. Make sure you click both on your sun sign and your rising sign to get the full scope of Uranus and Aries for you. I'll see you in the next segment.